screen right now. Okay, my voice is low. Okay. Is it louder now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Not too loud like that, but you could increase your voice. That will help.
Okay, okay. All right, I'm going to try. I'm going to share my screen right now so that we'll be carried along because we have a limited time for this introductory session. So, let me see if I can share my screen right now. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Please.
let's go.
Let's make it 15 minutes straight so that we can have time to respond to the questions. Thank you.
All right. So by the end of this session, I'm going to be very quick, but I will see how we are going to achieve all of these objectives for this session before we move over to having questions taken and answered. So now, what is systematic review? Systematic review is a rigorous, structured, and replicable method that identifies, appraises, and synthesizes all available evidence relevant to a specific and clearly formulated research question. Systematic reviews is just follows a step-by-step guideline, a structured guideline that you must follow before you can be able to conduct a systematic review. Unlike narrative reviews, which are subjective, which doesn't really have a structure. Okay, that's how it differs from systematic reviews, because systematic reviews are structured and they can be replicable. They are done in a very rigorous manner, it's really robust. Yeah. So, and it's replicable, meaning that anybody can reproduce the same systematic review and come out with the same outcome. That's just what it means for systematic review to be replicable. So you synthesize all available evidence, yeah, that is relevant to a specific, clearly formulated research question. So why do we conduct a systematic review? We conduct a systematic review to be able to synthesize the best available evidence, to reduce bias, and also to be able to inform policy, inform practice and guidelines. We also conduct systematic reviews to be able to identify gaps in literature, gaps in research. So, do this. I think this is better. So these are the steps in conducting systematic reviews. We develop research question, protocol development, search for literature, screening, extraction, data appraisal, and synthesis and reporting using the PRISMA guideline. So this is how to develop a research question using PICO. We use PICO to be able to formulate, to be able to come up with a research question. And it's not just PICO. We use different frameworks. We have the PEO, we have the PIO, we have the SPIDER, we have the SPICE. But for today's session, we will only look at the PICO framework. What is PICO? Population, intervention, comparison, and the outcome. It only helps us to structure our research question to know what we are looking at in that topic. Yeah. So, for instance, yeah, this is an example that I gave for an adult with hypertension. Does exercise compared with medication improve blood pressure? So this is just a research question. It can be that I formulated using PICO. Remember, our population is the participants, people that you are looking at, the population that you are looking at, the setting or the context that you are developing, you want to work with. The intervention is intervention is like, for instance, let me give examples so I can be able to understand it better. The intervention is what we are looking at. For instance, exercise for this topic, hypertension among exercise, comparing of exercise and medication in adults with hypertension. Exercise is our intervention. Yeah, it's just like something that you are looking at, an exposure you are looking at to be able to derive an outcome from it. Okay, comparison is a comparator that you can compare with that intervention. The outcome is what you are looking at, what you're looking at achieving from that topic, from that research question. That's the outcome we are looking at achieving at the end of that, at the end of the study. So yeah, this example I gave, in adults with hypertension, does this compared with this improve blood pressure control? So let's go ahead. So these are other frameworks that we use to formulate our research question. We have the PICOS, the PCC, PEO, SPIDER, and SPICE. Then this is how we develop our inclusion and exclusion criteria. We use the PICO framework to develop our inclusion and exclusion criteria. You can use other frameworks depending on what you use to develop your research question. You can use other frameworks. Then you also look at study design, you also look at language, publication year, and publication type. You'll be able to define your inclusion regarding population. The population that you're going to be looking at, you define it, you define the population that you're going to exclude. Also define the intervention that you're going to include and the one you're going to exclude. You will define the comparison you are going to include and exclude. Outcome, same with study design, same with language, same with the population year that you're trying to look at, or the publication type. Is it a peer-reviewed journal manuscript they're trying to look at? So these are all things that we look at for inclusion and exclusion criteria. So please be writing down your questions, okay? Because I'm trying to rush. So we have the search strategies, how we develop our search strategies. We have the database search. We have different databases that we search for manuscripts. We have this one's PubMed is for medical, scientific journal. The Scopus is like a universal, a multidisciplinary database. Sorry, Embase, Cochrane Library, and Google Scholar, which is also multidisciplinary. But PubMed is like for medical or scientific studies. So then we have the keyword and mesh terms. How we develop this is from our research question. We develop our keywords and our mesh terms from our research question. So it will guide us to develop this. Then we have the Boolean operators, the and, the or, and the not. These Boolean operators helps us to broaden our search. Yeah, we have the search filters. So I wrote out this example that we can use to search for PubMed search. So this is an example of a search strategy that I developed for a PubMed search. You can see the mesh terms, the medical subjects headings here that are very peculiar to PubMed database. So we have the screening strategies. We have the stage 1 screening, which is the title and abstract screening. Sorry, the first stage of screening is duplication. The duplication. Yeah, once you import once you are done searching, for instance here, I copied this example, this search strategy. For instance, I copied it and I pasted it in PubMed. Yeah, the outcome that I get from it, the total amount, the amount of studies that I get from this database, I'm going to import it either to a reference manager like Zotero, EndNote, or I can also decide to import it to Covidence or Rayan. So when you import it there, you go ahead and do the duplication. After the duplication, you remove just a removal of duplicates. From there, you do the title and abstract screening, which is the first stage of the screening that you do. One good thing about all these tools is that it helps us to do it very, very quickly. Like Rayan's an AI tool that we use that can help you to do your title and abstract screening, in the sense that you can be able to filter out what you want, the keyword you're looking for. Okay, same with Covidence. And then the second stage of screening is the full text screening, which once you're done with the title and abstract screening, all the records you selected from this first stage screening, they go over to having depth. Maybe you can go over and download their PDFs or the full text articles. Then the next stage is you have to screen the studies against your inclusion and exclusion criteria that you previously determined, before. You do that all this before you get to this stage. Yeah. So then you do the full text screening. And remember, there must be an independence review session. For systematic reviews, you should have at least 2 reviewers review a topic, a research question, a systematic review on a particular research question. You should have at least 2 independent reviewers that will review your selected articles or the imported articles, that will help you with the first stage and second stage screening. Also, whenever there is conflict, maybe 2 people are undecided about a particular article, you have to decide whether you are going to include a third reviewer that would settle disagreement, that would decide which study, settle the conflict in screening of these studies. Then these are the tools for screening. As I said it before, we have the Rayan, we have the Covidence and Zotero, EndNote, and all the reference manager. They can help us with study screening. So the next thing we are talking about is using Prisma guideline. So first of all, systematic reviews, most systematic reviews, you have to use a Prisma guideline or the Cochrane handbook, the guideline for the Cochrane handbook for systematic review. So you can go online now and search for Prisma 2020 guideline and download it. It will help you to be able to follow it to structure your systematic reviews. Yeah, so these are the sections for using Prisma guidelines. Selection, you identify studies, you screen them, you check their eligibility, and then you include. So this process does what? It ensures transparency and replicability. So this is the Prisma flow diagram where you can record everything every stage, both the records identified from the databases, duplicate records, the studies, the number of records screened, the records excluded, the numbers searched for retrieval, the ones not retrieved. It will help you. Systematic review, one good thing about it is the transparency. You have to be very, very open about everything you do in that particular topic you are working on, in that particular research question. You have to document every step, how many records you retrieve, how many records screened, every step must be documented. So then, this is practical tools. You have the Rayan. The Rayan is AI assisted. It's an online automated tool that you use to screen your search, your retrieved records. You help you to screen them. Same with Covidence, and then we have the reference managers. Then these are challenges that we have in systematic reviews: publication bias, poorly defined research questions, the inadequate search strategy, the time and resource constraints, and the challenge with managing duplicates. And this is where the Covidence and all the tools they come in, so you can help with this. Then the time and resource constraint is, systematic review is very, very comprehensive, so it takes a lot of time. Okay, so it's a challenge that we encounter in systematic reviews. Then the inadequate strategy can also be a challenge, in the sense that if you don't prepare, formulate it, you might not be able to retrieve enough studies that will answer your research question. Yeah, and sometimes you might get a very, very large number of studies that you might not be able to screen all of them. Yeah, so these are challenges that we encounter you can encounter with inadequate research strategies. Then the poorly defined research question. If you don't define your question using tools like PICO, PEO, it can be a problem for you. It can be a challenge, when you're trying to conduct your systematic review. It can be, if you don't properly define your research question, it can be a problem. Then we have the publication bias, which is what, systematic reviews, you have to only use studies that are already published. Yeah, that does not mean that there are no good studies that are not published, but because it's systematic review, we have to be very transparent with what we are doing. So we have to use only published articles.
2 more minutes, please.
Okay, these are tips for beginners. For you to connect to systematic review, you have to register your protocol first. Register it in Prospero first once you develop a research question, you go ahead and register it. And then you have to work with at least 2 reviewers. This will ensure that this will help reduce bias. Okay. And then you have to search. You have to document search strategy for transparency. Then you have to stay organized using a reference manager. So, this conclusion, what's the benefit of systematic review? It's very rigorous, transparent, and valuable. So you have to master how to use PICO. You have to master how to develop your eligibility criteria, settings, and tools. Then one thing about systematic review is that you must collaborate. You can't do it alone. Remember, you can't do systematic review. One person cannot do a systematic review. That's why you have to collaborate with. You have a team that all of you can be able to decide, do the screening, the data extraction, the critical appraisal, and all of the steps in systematic review. So this will enable you to have a very strong and reliable review. So I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Precious. Thank you for the wonderful warm-up, and I'm very sure we are happy to be here and ready with our questions. I can see that many of us have dropped some questions in the chat box, and we will also provide an opportunity for people to raise their hands, unmute, and ask their questions. But before that, I just wanted to inform us that we have shared our social media handles, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and Google Group for people to join. The role as we shift to the question and answer session is that you raise your hand and I'm going to call your name. Then you can ask your question, or Precious can do that, or David. And we will be taking 5 hands. If we have up to 5 hands, we'll be doing session by group by group, 5 hands, and then we take 5 questions from the chat box. Because we already have more than 5 questions in the chat box, I'm going to start with the 5 questions and then we take the next set from the hands raised. Thank you. Precious, we have the first question, the first set of questions in the chat box. Please, how do I get CSV files for other database other than Scopus to include all necessary information such as abstracts, authors, type of analysis in bracket quantitative or qualitative, etc.?
Well, it depends on your screening tool that you are going to use. If you're using Covidence, some of these tools, they have a particular type of file that they require. Some don't support CSV file, so you have to use RIS. Yeah, so it depends on the tool that you are working with for your screening. I think that will determine the type of file that you are going to download.
Okay, the next question says, please, what are merge terms?
Okay, merge terms are medical subject headings. They help you to develop your search string. Okay, let me show us a search string so I can see what. Okay. Let me show us a search string so I can get an example of a search string. What I mean. So yeah, this is a search string. This example that I gave for PubMed. Merge terms are medical subject headings that you develop in PubMed. Okay, it will help you to retrieve like similar or related terms for a particular topic. There are terms that can help you to get as many as possible related terms to a specific topic. Something like hypertension. Hypertension can have merge terms like high blood pressure. Can have merge terms like hypertensives. All of these are related medical terms for hypertension. So that's what merge terms mean. So we use it mostly for PubMed search to get as many as possible studies that are related to that particular topic that we are looking at.
Okay, the next question goes, please, can you elucidate what you mean by the duplicates?
Okay. When you get studies from different databases, like maybe when you develop a search strategy and you choose to work with databases like 3 or 4 databases here. When you develop that search strategy, you can input it in PubMed, input it in all those databases that you have chosen. Okay. Then all the records you are able to retrieve from these databases, when you import them to that particular tool that you're going to work with, maybe Confidence or Rayyan or Zotero. So when you retrieve these records, there must be duplicates, because it's possible that an article in PubMed can also be in Scopus. It's possible for an article in Scopus to also be in Cochrane Library. Okay, you can be able to find, you can find about like 3 duplicates on one article. So you duplicate them using these tools, so they can be able to, so you don't have to screen one article twice. Do you get it? So when you import all these articles that you retrieve from these databases, import them to your screening tool. You first of all duplicate them and delete all the duplicates to be able to help you screen your articles.
Thank you. Confidence is not a free tool. How do I get access?
Yeah. You have to pay. Yeah, you have to pay. So yeah, both Confidence and Rayyan, they're not free. So yeah, it is what it is.
Is it necessary to have Prisma flow chart? I use to see many systematic reviews without this chart, or there are more other systematic review guidelines.
There are other guidelines, but the Prisma helps us to be able to document each step in conducting screening. So it just makes our work very transparent. It shows us how many records we're able to screen at each stage. So I think most systematic review require a Prisma flow diagram. I don't think, for systematic reviews that follows Prisma guideline, please pay attention. For systematic reviews that follow the Prisma guideline, you must have a Prisma flow chart. you must have you must include a Prisma flowchart that can be able to show us every stage that you went through to screen your articles.
Thank you. So we are going to move to the next set of questions via hand raise. The first hand I can see is, before moving to that, there is the first question that was asked by someone. Please, how do I get CSV files for the other database other than Scopus to include all necessary info such as abstract, authors, types of analysis, quantitative or qualitative, etc.
I
The
think
person sent a follow-up question saying, how do I he or she suspect that it wasn't well understood, and rephrases the question saying, how do I get CSV files for other databases other than Scopus to include all necessary information such as abstract, authors, type of analysis, etc., for further screening on Excel, so as to turn down the number of results gotten before advancing to the in-text screening?
Okay, I think I will just add something on that question. For you to get that, I think you can also get CSV from PubMed. So I think she can just demonstrate how to do a random search on PubMed, and you can also PubMed being a database. You can also get a CSV file from PubMed, depending on it all depends on the research question that you're trying to answer. For example, answering a question that is related to medicine, and probably you're trying to look up a lot of quantitative papers, around the effectiveness or whatever thing it might be. So when you go to databases like PubMed, you can actually, when you select all the papers that are going to be generalized, by then I expect you should have included your search strategy, your detailed search strategy, and then you filtered everything you want for a search. Then maybe you choose that to the you can also get the PMID. And now what you can do now is that alternatively, what you can do, if you don't have a .csv engine, you can actually export it to the Zotero or any kind of reference manager. So from the reference manager, you now move it to Excel. I don't know if I'm making sense. Take for example, now you come to another database like maybe Joe or maybe any kind of database that doesn't really support generating direct CSV, which is the comma separated value of Excel. So you can actually download the PMID, or depending on the extension you have, then move it to your reference manager like EndNote or Zotero or whatever. Then from there, you can now export as CSV. I don't know if I really satisfy that question example.
Hi,
So
Innocent. They can
okay.
barely hear you. I hope I don't know, maybe you can reposition yourself. The audience can barely hear you, please.
Okay, let me put off my. I don't know. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but it's dim. I don't know if you can look for a better position. Are you like maybe the room where you are? While we are waiting for Innocent to change his position, for the interest of time, I'm going to call upon Ibrahim. Please, if you are not speaking, kindly mute yourself. Please.
All right. Thank you, Ma. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
Go
you
ahead.
are. We can hear you.
All right. Thank you, Ma. Thank you, Ma, for the presentation. It's very educative and well enlightened. Thank you very much. Yes, I need more explanation on publication bias And what ways or how can I prevent that form of bias? Thank you. That's my question.
Okay, well, you can't prevent that bias because systematic review, you have to get published articles. The reason why it's a bias is because there are still good articles that are unpublished, and systematic reviews, many journals take time to publish articles. Yeah. So when you're working on a particular topic, you have to use the available published one. So by doing so, it introduces bias that we call publication bias. So you cannot escape that. Yeah. But you have to document it in your limitations of your work, your systematic review that, so bias was, just document it and it's fine.
All right. Thank you, Ma. Thank you.
Okay. I can see Fortune's hand is raised. He wants to say something in addition to what Precious and David has said, I think. Over to you, Fortune.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. So I just want to add to what Precious had said in one of the questions that was asked about Covidence. So yeah, although Covidence is like largely paid software, but they do offer for researchers coming from LMIC. So for example, you're coming from Nigeria or any of the LMIC country, just send an email to Covidence support that you want to do a systematic review. Not much, you want to do a systematic review, you're from whatever country, and then they'll grant you like one account for a year, so you can like do one systematic review free on Covidence for a year. So I just want to check that in. I can maybe share the email in the chat box before the end of this session.
Thank you. Next, in my screen is Josephine Shimiyimana. Can you please ask your question?
Okay, thank you. It's just Joseph, not Josephine. But anyway,
Oh,
thank
sorry,
you.
Joseph. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. I'd like to ask again about the different guidelines of systematic review. Of course, the presenter clearly explained Prisma, but I still have some curiosity about the application of systematic review guidelines depending to different types. For example, you have a Scopus review, literature review, and meta-analysis. How can apply those different systematic guidelines to those different systematic reviews? Thank you. And what are them, and which one is more appropriate to those specific types of systematic review? Thank you.
Well, I don't think there are types of systematic reviews. It has a structure that you must follow to be able to do a very rigorous systematic review. So, you must follow that structure. If you are reporting using Prisma guideline, you have to follow that structure. Then, for doing meta-analysis or other kinds of, depends on the type of systematic review. I mean, your research question, that's what determines whether you are going to be using a meta-analysis, other kinds of analysis method like the narrative synthesis or the thematic synthesis. Depends on your research question. But any type that you use, as long as you're able to gather, at the end of the day, you get a conclusion, a finding relating that answers your research question, you are good. You are very good. Just follow the guideline, like the Prisma guideline, structure your work. And if you systematic review, Prisma guideline also has a structure that can where you can, if you're doing a meta-analysis, yeah, there are other guidelines for meta-analysis, but you can skip those meta-analysis guidelines if you are doing a qualitative synthesis. Yeah, I think that's that. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, it's fine. I can understand it. That just follow the structure of the systematic review and refer to the research question. Yeah, I think it's clear.
Okay.
All right. The next hand I can see is that of Mohima. Please, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? We can barely hear you. You can also type your question.
My question is that actually in case of PICO, when we use the study design, there are different question format. In the second slide, there is a point we can use study design. My question is, in which circumstances we can use study design with PICOs?
Precious, could you hear her?
No, I didn't hear anything.
Mohima, can you type so that we can make sure we hear you very well?
Yeah.
While we look up to your question, Alice, can you unmute and ask your question, please?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My question is, how many articles minimum I should select or approve to make a systematic review?
Okay.
You.
Okay. Okay, do you have anything more?
And if I don't find the minimal, what can I do with the one that I have found? Thank you.
Okay, there is no specific number of articles that you have to select, but I think that from 4 articles above can effectively answer a research question. But there is no particular range. The goal is for you to be able to answer that research question. That's your goal, right? So you can get as many as 15 articles, and get 10, as long as at the end of the day you screen them, and based on your eligibility criteria and they pass, still critically appraise them using the specific frameworks that we use. And then you realize that these articles are robust, they are very good, high quality articles. Then you can use them for your synthesis. So that's one. What's the second question again?
Alice, are you still there?
The second question.
Here.
Your second
Do you
question,
want me?
please. Can you repeat your second question?
My second question is, if I don't see the minimal articles, what can I do with the one that I found?
Okay, you don't find the number of articles you need for your systematic review. You can adjust your eligibility criteria. You can only adjust them to accommodate more articles. Okay, just document whatever you are doing. If you are adjusting, when you adjust, then you justify, give us a rationale why. For instance, yeah, you wanted to work on a topic with a population of older adults, and then you are not able to find the number of articles. Probably might find like 2 or 1 articles on older. You can try to extend it to accommodate younger adults. Okay, so in that way, you'll be able to find even more articles, but then you have to give a justification for why you're able to, for why you adjusted the articles. So that is it. Then if you don't find the number of, just adjust your research questions and your eligibility criteria, and you'll find. I don't know if I answered that question.
Yes, I don't know if you can hear me clearly now.
Very loud and clear.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so I think I just wanted to chip in something in this last question she answered. One of the things that should also be considered is that whenever you're writing a systematic review, there's also always room that you should make sure you abide by what you've clearly stated in your protocol. That's why before you start a systematic review, you have to initiate a protocol. And then in a situation whereby there are limitations in terms of some of the studies, and then maybe there is paucity of studies, what we call paucity of studies, maybe few studies and all that, and maybe some other limitations around it, and you're still able to maybe go through answering the question, it's always very important for you to state it in the limitation section of your review, okay? So let's say, for example, you able, after inserting your search strings and developing a search strategy and conducting an exhaustive search, also searching reference list of related articles, maybe you had very few number of studies. Then what it means is that in the limitation of your systematic review, you have to also account for that, state some of the limitations that you met. Probably, there could still be limitations. Maybe you couldn't reach out on some certain journals, maybe, or databases because of institutional access and all that. So all these things it's not meant to be all perfect in the sense that you want it to be 20, then it's going to be 20 studies, or you want it to be 15, it's going to be 15. Some things can happen, right? What you're trying to do, the whole idea of a systematic review, that you are trying to answer a question based on what existing studies has shown, that's existing primary studies, or maybe existing systematic reviews in the case of doing an umbrella review. Then in that situation, you still have to make sure you report based on what you found, and then address limitations that you might have encountered in your systematic review. And that's why it's always very important we stress that a systematic review should be done via collaboration, because when you collaborate with people, when you join this network and collaborate with other people, it makes it more easier, that two people are looking at it. That way it reduces bias and makes it more easier for you to answer a research question. And if maybe you are having limitations in terms of getting much literature, the other person, your partner, should also be able to check out more in depth. And there could be some bias maybe in terms of your judgment that can easily be captured by the other person. And then if there are issues of conflict, both of you can resolve it. Or if there is a third person, as many people involved in conducting that systematic review. Thank you. I think somebody's asking a question about AI for data extraction.
Innocent, thank you. So what I would also like to chip to that by saying that it doesn't necessarily, you don't need to go back and do a search. If you're conducting, for example, a systematic review, and you have 2 articles in the database, from all the database search that you've conducted, that you've searched, and you find 2 articles, consider reporting your findings narratively. And if it will definitely depend on the type of review that you are conducting. And so you have already published your protocol, and you want to abide to what you have said, except you think that at the time you conducted your database search, it has been about some months, and we have some articles already being published on that topic, then you can go back and do an update search for you to get more articles on that topic, if there are. Otherwise, you will have to find a way to report your findings the way they are. Okay. So we have had our 5 and more questions. through the hand raise. So we're going to go back to the chat box and
Sorry.
take a couple.
Oh, sorry, can I make a contribution?
Sure.
Yes, sorry. It's really regarding the number of articles to include and all. So I'm not sure that there is like a minimum number in terms of the number of articles to include in your final analysis. Because we have seen systematic reviews of just two articles as the final included articles. So if we should think of a minimum number, then maybe that minimum number is 1. But I think from 2 articles you can be confident in the findings of that systematic reviews, because we have seen Cochrane systematic reviews. I mean, these are very good and standard systematic reviews, including only 2 articles. So maybe the whole process of searching and screening, they ended up having 2 articles that answered the research questions, and of course, they synthesized those 2 articles and came up with their discussion and result. So that's just what I want to chip in. Thank you.
Thank you. So yes, there is no limitation. I mean, limited the minimum number of articles. Thank you. So let's go back to the next set of questions in the chat box. Okay. Systematic reviews take a lot of time. What available tools can be used to automate the process? This goes with a question the other person asks. I'm just going to group the questions, and then I ask. There's another question that goes thus: can AI be used for data extraction as well? Precious, can you respond to these 2 at once? Thank you.
Okay, I think I get the second question, but you have to repeat the first question. I didn't really get that.
Systematic reviews take a lot of time. What
Mm.
available tools can we use to automate the process involved?
Yeah, Providence. That's why we have Ryan. Ryan is an AI automated tool that you can use to hasten your work, to make your work easy. Okay. Just input your filters and input your the Pico or whatever framework that you just input it, and it will help you to limit reduce the time that you have to spend in screening study. And also it also helps you to do the data extraction too. I think I forgot to mention that you can use all these tools, Rayan, Covidence, to do data extraction. You can also use Covidence to do your quality assessment. So these tools helps us to hasten up our work, do it very fast. Okay, more than when you do it manually, that it will take you a lot of time. So using these tools, of course, it quickens our work. Yeah, and then for AI tools that you can use for using AI tools to write systematic reviews. It is actually not advisable to use AI to write, but AI can help you. Okay, just to maintain the methodological rigor of your work. Okay, you don't use AI for it, but there are things you can use AI for. For like the Rayan tool is an AI tool, right? For screening. But using AI like ChatGPT, it can help you with data extraction too. It can help you with critical appraisal, So all these tools, they are necessary, but don't use it to write. Don't use AI to write your systematic review, but it can help you with some things in the systematic review process. Yeah, I don't know if I answered that question.
Okay. Innocent, you
Ro-
want to say something?
No,
Or
Rose
who
is
is there?
Fortune. So I
Okay.
just want to chip in that we've done like webinars before on using AI tools for systematic reviews. So we've covered like AI tools for many stages in the systematic reviews process. So I could share some of these videos with us, maybe at the course of this webinar, or maybe later on our WhatsApp platform.
Yeah. So the next set of question is, do we have a number of, I think we have said this time and again, we are advising that systematic review should be conducted as a team and not an individual work for several reasons that we have already mentioned. So I will just skip to the next question, which goes thus: for the PICO checklist, how can I go about not including the comparison part of it?
Okay, well, you have to take it out. You have to take out the comparison. Then but you have to document that you are now conducted your literature, your research question using the PIO. There is the PIO framework that you can use that does not include the comparator component. Okay, just remove it. As long as you they also have the PICOs and the PICOT, the one that has time frame. So the only thing is just whatever you are doing here, document it so that it will be very clear what you are doing, but you can always take out the comparator part.
Just to add that we have different types of framework that you can use to guide your systematic review, the conduct of your systematic review. So depending on your question that you're and the type of review that you're conducting, always read and research to see that what you're doing matches what you are actually conducting. So someone is asking, what is data synthesis? What is data synthesis?
Data synthesis is a process whereby you combine different articles together. You combine it together, integrate it, incorporate it, or whatever you want to call it, to be able to get a specific finding. You merge different articles together to get a finding, a conclusion out of it. So that is data synthesis, which you have different ways of doing your data synthesis. You have the narrative way. That's when you are doing a lot of heterogeneous articles, when you're trying to synthesize articles of different methodologies. Yeah, so but if it's for quantitative, we have the meta-analysis. You use meta-analysis tool for your quantitative synthesis. You use the thematic for your qualitative synthesis. So you're trying to get one finding out of all these studies that you integrated together. So that is what it means.
So it's similar to data analysis, just that it goes further, and you will always have it like the process of examining, organizing, and even transforming and even modeling your data that you've extracted to conduct your systematic review or your meta-analysis. Again, depending on the type of review that we are conducting. The next question is, please, can I use one database, example Scopus? Can I use one database, example Scopus, for my review? And what will be my justification?
Okay. The reason why we use diverse databases is to enhance the reliability of our work. Okay, we are trying to make our work very valid. Okay, that's why we use many data, but you can use one database. But then just know that it's a limitation. Using one database is a limitation, but because there are availability of other database for you. So I don't know if you can justify using one database, but I probably might have a reason why you are using one database for your work, but you have to write that reason for your justification. But then I don't think it is advisable you use one database. We're trying to be very thorough and very comprehensive with our search strategy. This is why we use diverse 2, 3, 4 database to be able to get as many studies as possible to answer our research question.
So the rule of thumb is for us to use more than one database for our reviews. And there are scientific reasons to that. So Please do not have it in mind that you can use just one database to conduct a robust systematic review. That would not be trusted in the scientific community. The next question, which is the second to the last, what is the criteria to progress from a systematic review to a meta-analysis?
There is no criteria. It depends on the type of systematic review that you are conducting. If it's a quantitative systematic review, they're trying to get the effect size, and then your methodology is there are homogeneous methods. Yeah, you have to use meta-analysis to synthesize your work. So there is no criteria, but you have to look out for, when you are searching for your studies, you have to look out for only quantitative studies to answer your research question. Okay, you don't combine qualitative and or mixed method. You have to use quantitative to be able to maintain that homogeneous methodology that will enable you to do a quantitative meta-analysis. Yeah.
And just to add that it also depends on your protocol. You have to state everything on your protocol. If you are conducting, it's not that when you're going to start the study and then at one point, I don't know, but you have a guideline that you will use in conducting your study, and then you will decide from the very beginning the type of review you're conducting, which is guided by so many aspects. For example, maybe literature says that what has been done so far in understanding the topic is only systematic review, yet we have a space or an opportunity to conduct a meta-analysis. So you and your team or your lab will be able to decide if you want to respond to that research gap. So it definitely depends on the research team and what you want to be able to respond at the end of the day. And there are different types of meta-analysis as well. So just for you to know. So how to develop a gap in systematic review, and what is the difference between SLR and literature review? Let me repeat the question. How to develop a gap in SLR, and what is the difference between SLR and literature review? Precious, over.
How to develop a gap in SLR and systematic review. Is that the question?
Yes, please.
Well, SLR are structured literature review, right? That's what you mean by SLR.
I guess so. Please, let's try to write words for what they mean so we don't guess what, but I assume that's what the person means.
Okay. Well, everything depends on both SLR. SLR follows a structure, its own structure. Okay, SLR are structured from the name, but they are not the same as systematic review.
SLR means systematic literature review, short form of systematic literature review.
Sorry, say that again.
SLR is the short form of systematic literature review.
Systematic literature review, you say? Okay, systematic literature review.
Okay, systematic literature review. Well, like I said before, it has its own method of conducting the SLR, the systematic literature review. Same with normal systematic reviews. They have their own structure. I think that's the difference. The structure is different between the both. But SLRs, they also use the Prisma. Some SLR, they also report using the Prisma guideline. Yeah. I mean, the Prisma flow diagram for their screening. So I don't think there is any like much difference between the two, but SLRs are mostly done narratively. They can also be done thematically, right? But I don't think there is any much difference apart from the structure, because at the end of the day, we'll be able to get our finding, our results using different structures, if you use systematic review, you can be able to get this finding. If you use structured or systematic literature review, you can be able to get that finding that you're looking for. Yeah, but I don't know if systematic literature reviews, they do critical appraisal. I really am not too conversant with systematic literature review, but I don't know if they do the critical appraisal like systematic review, because for scoping reviews, I think that's what differentiates both. So I don't really know about systematic literature review.
Okay, sorry, I just want to add to that.
Okay.
You know, whenever we talk about SLR, it's a term that is used mostly when we are writing a traditional systematic review. Traditional dissertation. The vast majority of time, you know, when you're trying to conduct a systematic review as a dissertation, you know, it's usually we use the word systematic literature review. And in that case, there's usually a section that has a traditional, where you write the normal traditional literature review. Do you understand? Let's say, for example, you want to do a systematic review as a dissertation. In most cases, the guidelines that are usually provided is just for a system, for a dissertation. And in that situation, there's usually a kind of chapter 2 where you have to do a kind of literature review, the normal way, where you kind of, review literature around the concept. Then maybe in your third chapter, you can now continue the normal methods that you want to use. And vast majority of times when you're conducting a systematic literature review, you know, one of the things that differentiates there now is that, you know, it rarely leads to a meta-analysis, because you've got to review papers. Like I said, you're doing it as a dissertation, you're writing the review as a dissertation, and you've got your own traditional literature review section inside of it. Then you have to now maybe select papers following a predetermined structure, and then you do your normal critical appraisal, usually conducted, which you can refer to as your risk of bias, and then maybe you can narratively or thematically, you know, synthesize it. The vast majority of time when you come in contact with that word systematic literature review, it's something that is usually associated with students in academic institutions that are trying to write the dissertation. So you try to say, okay, you need to prepare a systematic or a structured literature review, you know, where it tries to simulate some of the elements of a systematic review, but then it provides a traditional section where you write your normal, you know, literature review, and you also accompany it with other things. Now, you talked about something about gaps, how to identify gaps. You know, identifying gap in literature has not changed, regardless of the type of research you're trying to do. What do you mean by gap? What we mean by gap is what is not existing in literature that we want to address, or what are some of the things that are existing in literature that we want to build new insights on. That's when we talk about gap in literature. Okay, there's a gap. That means there is shortage of knowledge in this particular area. So if you're trying to do a systematic literature review, you know, you can have an argument that, okay, to the best of knowledge, after you've done an exhaustive search of literature, a lot of findings has focused more using this particular method or this paradigm of writing, or maybe so many of the studies that has reviewed around this topic has used so and so design. Then the gap now is that we need to explore this using a qualitative approach or using a quantitative approach, depending on what you found in literature. Or maybe these studies has focused more on infants, then we need to look at it from the mother's perspective, depending on how you build your argument. The idea for gap in literature is that we want to know if what we want to do now, okay, how can it help in contributing to knowledge or what is existing in literature? That's it. So whether it's now for a systematic review, for you to identify gap now means, okay, other reviews has focused on this. This is where our review wants to focus on. That's the response, particularly to the question on gap in literature. But for the SLR, it's a term that is usually common when you're writing a systematic review as a dissertation. And in that situation, you usually have a chapter 2 that you write your traditional literature review. then you now maybe follow a structure. Usually you might still use the Prisma flow diagram, to represent your search process, and also you always do a risk of bias assessment to show the rigorousness of some of the papers you've selected, and then maybe other things. So that term is usually familiar whenever you're doing a systematic review as a dissertation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Innocent. Can you just stay there? And there is
Okay.
a question that is similar to that. What is the difference between a systematic review, systematic scoping review, and narrative synthesis? What is mostly highly rated and why?
All right, okay. Let me start from the last one. What is usually when we look at the Pollitt and Beck hierarchy of evidence for research, you see that at the base of it, we've got piece of editorial reviews, that might not really follow any structure. But then at the top, you find out that the systematic review is at the top. So that's in terms of rating, the systematic review is more rigorous, and considering that it's all the scrutiny that it follows. Now, but when you look at the scoping review, a scoping review, we define a scoping review as a type of review that tries to map all the available literature around the given subject. I think, for example, now I want to do a systematic scoping review. I want to, maybe you started a PhD program. I want to do a scoping review around the topic, your dissertation. Maybe your dissertation is around infant mortality. In that situation, when you're doing a scoping review, you're just mapping all the available literature, right? There are tendencies for you to include, both gray literature, conference papers, lots of articles that might not really have that uniformity. But in terms of doing a systematic review, there's always a very rigorous standard. Now, for you to conduct a scoping review now, there's still a checklist for that, what we call the Prisma SCR, and there's still a risk of bias assessment for scoping reviews. But one of the difference between a systematic review, I'm going to differentiate the systematic review from the scoping review now. One of the difference is that a systematic review happens to be much more rigorous and has a lot of transparency, looking at the type of studies that are being included inside of it, right? And doing a systematic review now has a high tendency to lead to a meta-analysis, which is more like the top tier, strongest evidence, because quantitative evidence has a lot of solid backing inside of it. Rather a scoping review cannot really lead to a meta-analysis. Now, when you talk about other type of review, there are still other type of reviews, right, that you might want to conduct. But the idea now is, are we following a structure? You're going to rate a systematic review first, then scoping review comes second, then other reviews, right? Now, other review, narrative synthesis, now you can just pull up a piece of evidence, maybe a kind of policy brief or a conference report, or maybe any type of review that is drawn from a traditional literature that you've written in the past, maybe for a kind of primary study, and you want to, trim it up for publication. In that situation, now you can narratively address top issues around an area of research. That could be a narrative synthesis, right? Now, I'm talking about narrative synthesis now as a literature review type, not as a method of data synthesis, because you can talk about narrative synthesis as a method of data synthesis for a systematic review. Don't confuse that. I'm talking about narrative literature review. So when you want to write, you can look at the chapter 2 of your project, of maybe your MSc, PhD project. You can look at it with that view, like being a narrative. You see how it is. It doesn't follow any structure. Any heading can come. You're making decisions based on based on your own. You might decide to address maybe some certain areas of around your topic. So there are some certain areas you might decide to drop. But now, when you want to do a systematic review, there is a guideline which she has talked about, which Dr. Pressure has talked about, where you have to, first of all, register a protocol. Then after registering it, okay, you're going to search this way, you're going to search this, you're going to search that. These are the rigorousness of the standard. And then at the end of the day, when you still search and get the papers, you still have to do quality assessment check to be sure that the papers have the necessary domains. All these things are what makes it systematic. Now, but contrary to a normal narrative synthesis, narrative literature review, where you write your chapter 2, you just look at it as a chapter 2 of your project, where you just, maybe you're writing about malaria in Africa. You can start with, okay, let me start with the 2.1 as the causes of malaria. Maybe the next one, I'm review diagnosis. You are just including any paper you want as your citation. You're citing any type of paper, you're citing WHO reports, you're citing wide literatures. Okay, that's a very good view to look at that type of review. And also there's other type of reviews that we call integrative reviews, critical reviews, and all that. Most of these reviews, they don't follow an established guideline in writing them. Okay, that based on the fact of the judgment of the researcher. You're just the one writing and making decision on the themes, areas to review. But whereas for a scoping review and a systematic review, they do follow a structure. But now, what differentiates a scoping review from a systematic review is that the scoping review now will go more broad. And the more broad means that it can review several literature, it can even include systematic reviews and scoping reviews as included papers for it. And that might reduce the level of, that might actually question some kind of bias in our conclusion. But whereas when we want to do a systematic review, we've got a specific clinical research question that we want to answer. Then what we are going to do now is to look for papers that are specific to that clinical question, screen those papers rigorously, and then answer it. But in terms of a scoping review, it's mostly maybe you want to start a topic. You want to know, okay, what has previous literature said about this topic? Then you might want to just look around papers and all that, maybe following what we call the PRISMA SCR. There's a guideline for conducting a scoping review as well. But it's just that the major difference between a scoping review and a systematic review is that systematic review tends to be more specific in addressing a question, but whereas in a scoping review, we map all available literature. That's something that must be captured in the definition for you to conduct a scoping review. Whereas for a narrative literature review, that is the usual traditional one that we write, where we are just, being subjective, and then more of the judgment there is from experts, because more experts, let's say a reviewer is going through your submission from narrative review, they are going to give tendencies for publication in the narrative review is quite difficult, because it requires that it's an expert in the field that is making the judgment. Whereas for a systematic review and scoping review, once you follow the guidelines, the reviewers have to compare what you've submitted against the guideline, and if that's good, then that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Innocent. And do we have any hand? No? So due to no hand raised, we are going to continue with the questions in the chat box. The next question is, can you put us through a practical way of literature search on PubMed and how to use the mesh terms? So I will put this question on hold for now until we see we have enough time for that. The next question is, how can one navigate mixed methods systematic review? Lastly, can you talk about SPIDER? Over to you, Precious.
Okay, navigating a mixed method systematic review. By mixed method, I'm sure you mean including both quantitative, qualitative, mixed method research under your included studies, right? So the thing, what to do there is you have to now, because of the heterogeneity of your research design that you've selected, that is mixed, consisting of diverse methodologies, you now have to use a narrative approach to synthesize it, to synthesize your the findings. I think that's for that first question. Then the second question on what was the second question again?
The second part of the question is, can you talk about SPIDER? Like the person wants you to throw more light on what SPIDER is all about, probably what it does, things like that.
Okay, SPIDER, like Pico framework, is a tool for formulating a research question. You use SPIDER for when you are working on a qualitative study, a qualitative systematic review. That's where SPIDER comes in. SPIDER is just made up of, you have the sample, the phenomenon of interest, the design, the evaluation, and the research type. So you use SPIDER to, when you are looking at a qualitative systematic review, same way you use PICO when you're looking at a quantitative study. Yeah, that's where SPIDER comes in for qualitative, and not just SPIDER. There's also the SPICE tool that you also use for qualitative systematic reviews. Also, the PEO is also available. The PEO, the population exposure and outcome, is also used for qualitative systematic reviews. Yeah, so that is that.
Thank you. The next question we have is, in which circumstance should we use study design with PICO?
PICO, like I said, when it's for a quantitative study, and not just quantitative study, you must have a comparator. You're trying to compare an intervention with another intervention, or you're trying to compare an intervention with a placebo or a standard, a normal type of care. Okay, you're just trying to compare, when you're trying to compare two different interventions or exposure, that's when you use PICO. Okay, so but when it's just one, you're trying to evaluate an effect of one intervention, then that's when you use the PIO framework. But if you're trying to compare, that's when you use the PICO framework. Same thing in qualitative studies. You're trying to compare in qualitative studies, you use the SPICE, because the C in the SPICE is a comparative part of that framework. Yeah.
Thank you. Can you help us to understand how to assess? I think we are going to talk about risks of bias assessment in our upcoming session. Please stay tuned. Aside from the use of R for meta-analysis, what other tool can be used? Also, in our next session, kindly make sure you are registered. Please, how do you get the databases for systematic reviews? Can you help us with that, please?
Just go and search for them. If you're working on a scientific study or a medical or health science study, then you have to use PubMed. PubMed should be your number one if you're using if you're working on a health or scientific study. You use PubMed. You use the sister, which is Medline, and then each other database. It depends on what you're working on. If you're working on if you're trying to look for both social sciences and other disciplines, you can go over and use Scopus. Scopus contains all other disciplines, yeah, including Google Scholar. Google Scholar, there are a wide, diverse array of articles there from different disciplines. So depending on your topic, on the type of study, systematic review they're trying to carry out, you have to choose a database. If you're trying to work on a trial or a systematic review of trials, like a systematic review of randomized control trials, you have to go and use Cochrane Library. If you go to Cochrane Library, you see a lot of trials that can relate to the topic that you're trying to work on. So another one is if you're trying to work on a topic in Africa, like a African context, or maybe within one country in Africa, you can go and use Ajo database. So all these databases depends on what you are working on, the topic you're trying to work on.
So is systematic review just for health and medicine only? Can
No.
engineering and other discipline also do systematic reviews? If they don't, kindly explain its equivalent, if any.
Of course, any discipline can do a systematic review. Any discipline, it's not just for health. Any discipline is applied to all disciplines, not just health. I only use health, that's because I'm in health. So yeah, and I conduct my systematic review mostly in health field. So in both social sciences, both arts, humanities, all of it, anyone can do a systematic review.
And the last question is there a specific method to restrict countless articles usually gotten from Google Scholar?
Are you saying something?
No, I just wanted to emphasize the participant is focusing on Google Scholar.
Okay. Well, Google Scholar can give you as many as possible. But when you are using the Google Scholar, you can just set when you just use your keywords for search, use the keyword that are relevant to your research question. Use the keyword, then to search, then you turn on the filters, restrict it to the years that you're looking at, and then it will help you to limit the number of articles that you get from a search. Yeah, that is it for Google Scholar. But then if you're using other databases like PubMed, you have to use the Boolean operators like the or. I don't think I emphasized on that Boolean operators when I was talking. So
Yeah,
these are
Precious,
yeah.
sorry for cutting you. I'm going to take you back to PubMed just in a minute. Can you please explain what you mean by gray literature? Someone asked.
Okay, gray literatures are literatures. Any article that did not undergo peer review before publication. That is gray literatures. Any article that did not undergo a thorough peer review before publication from a journal. Peer review articles can be government articles from the WHO, all these WHO fact sheets, articles from WHO, other organizations. Peer-reviewed articles can also be conference abstracts. No, I'm talking about gray literatures. Sorry, please don't get me wrong. I'm talking about gray literatures. They can be they are non-peer reviewed. They are not peer reviewed before publication. Yeah, so they consist of registries like all the dissertations that you can find in ProQuest. All dissertations are gray literatures. They are not peer reviewed. All organizational articles that are published are not peer reviewed, so they are gray literatures. Just know that gray literatures are articles that did not undergo peer review. Just like the way our normal research, when you're trying to publish an article, you will have to undergo a thorough peer review before you can be able to get to publication stage. Yeah, that's what differentiates peer reviewed and gray literatures.
Okay, thank you very much, Precious. So we have 0 minutes left. However, I would like to beg that you spend some time, maximum 2 minutes, to kindly put to our audience verbally how to search on PubMed and how to use mesh terms. Thank you. 2 minutes max, please.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again for that. Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes, now we can see your screen.
Okay. So this is PubMed. I'm going to take out all of these things that is blocking my screen. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think we're good. So this is PubMed database, how it looks like. So how do we search using manually using PubMed? We go to advanced. First of all, I'm going to clear all the delimiters. Let me clear out all filters. So I go to advanced. So here I go to the advanced field. Yeah. And I go to I click here. Look at where I clicked, all fields. So if I'm working on a medical topic, I have to use mesh terms. So this is mesh terms, yeah. So for instance, I'm working on a topic on hypertension. And then I'm trying to get every article on hypertension, every article that relates to hypertension. That's why I said mesh terms here. Okay, so I'm going to add, I can try to also add high blood pressure as another word. So it can get me other terms related to high blood pressure. So I'm going to use all. I'm going to use the Boolean operator for this, the or and the and Boolean operator. So let me input, oh my God, sorry. Oh, sorry about that. I think my system just went off. So here, I hope you can hear me and see my screen as well.
Very loud and clear.
Yes, we can see your screen. We can.
So I'm using blood pressure as another mesh term. Okay, so I'm going to add this using I'm going to add it using all. Add with all. So this is the second word. So now I'm going to, for instance, my intervention, I'm trying to assess physical activities versus using medication to treat hypertension. Let me assume that this is my research question. I'm trying to assess using physical activity and compare it to medication to treat hypertension. So another mesh term I'm going to be having here is exercise. I'm going to add exercise, but I'm going to now use all. No, sorry, and. I'm going to use and to combine, because these are two similar terms, yeah? So I separated these two similar terms using the Boolean operator, or. Are you following me? And I'm trying to combine those similar terms and a different term using and. So another keyword for exercise can be, no, exercise is not, I'm using a mesh term for exercise. So another keyword for exercise is physical activity. Physical activity, so yeah, so this is another mesh term. So for now, I'm going to add this with all, because they are the same, it's the same with exercise, they are the same two similar words. So let's search. So I was able to retrieve 5,721 results using this term. But I can try to set my filters. I can try to set it to 10 years. So it has gone down to 2,247 articles. And I can try to go down and get only articles that have free full text. So it's down to 1,128 articles. Okay. So since I'm working on a topic on intervention, yeah, I can look for, I'm trying to compare medication and exercise. I can look for only RCTs. because I'm trying to compare intervention with another intervention, I can look for only randomized control trials and click on that. These are delimiters. Do you understand? These are filters that can help us to be able to get what we are looking for, to be able to limit our studies to what we to get a studies that can answer our research question. So at the end of the day, after all these my filters, which I must state these filters in my work, in my systematic review, and I must document it, every filters that I used. I must document that I used this, use that. Then I'm able to retrieve 154 results from this search. Okay, and look at the results. So how we are going to do this is that we are going to save every, if you want to use these articles, we go over and save them and save all the articles here, all articles, all results. I'm trying to create a file. I like to create a PubMed file or one that has an abstract. And then we create file. So this file now that I created contains all the 154 articles here. So I can go ahead and import this to Covidence or Zotero or Rayan and start my screening from there. I don't know if it's clear. This is the first way, one example. There are other examples that you can decide to search, other examples for searching in PubMed, which I'm going to show us also. You go and type PubMed. So if you're trying to use, remember you're trying to use mesh terms for this search. So I go over to the PubMed database, to their home. I'm looking for their home page, PubMed's home page. My network.
While the network is being reinstated, I just wanted to say that kindly make use of the social media handles shared in the chat box. Also, make sure you register for the upcoming session on part 2 of the Ask the Expert session that's coming up early December. And we're also looking forward to having you register for other events that we are hosting throughout the course of these remaining 2 to 3 months of the year. And over back to you,
Okay.
Precious.
So this is PubMed's homepage. And how I'm going to develop our search strategy for PubMed is using mesh terms. I can come here, look, I can come here, and this is the mesh database. I can click on the I'm trying to get relevant mesh words for my work. So this is mesh. So I want to get all the mesh terms for hypertension. Hypertension. So these are all the mesh terms for hypertension. You have about 53 different mesh terms for hypertension. You can see this. So you can go over and open a Word document and write out, if you want like 5, you can write it out manually. You can write hypertension or familial primary pulmonary hypertension or max hypertension or white coat hypertension. Just write it out manually instead of going to the advanced and mesh them. You can also do the same with exercise. It will give you all the mesh terms for exercise. You can do the same. But the thing is that you have to combine it using Boolean operators. If you're trying to get mesh terms for one topic, you use or. If you want to get like 5 mesh terms, you use or to separate them. If you're trying to combine it to a different keyword, you make them with and. Okay, there's also the not. the not Boolean operator, which we use to filter out some words that you don't want to see from the articles that you retrieve from this search. So I don't know if that's clear.
Yeah, I think you did a very great job there, Precious. And I would like us to wrap up now. Thank you very much. For everyone with the hand raised, with the question in the chat box that we didn't manage to reach them, we really appreciate you coming with your questions, but we are really sorry we've run out of time. Kindly send your questions to our email. We've shared the communication channels or via WhatsApp, and we'll be happy to respond to you on an individual basis. Thank you so much, Precious. I don't know if Fortune or any of the SRN team members leaders are here. If they have something to say, let me check. David, do you want to say something before we close? Julia, Nafisa, are you here?
Yes, I'm here, Ruth. This is Julia.
Okay. So I'm going to give the floor first to the facilitator, second to David, third to Julia, and fourth to Nafisa. I don't see Fortune, and then we are done for the day. Thanks.
Okay. What I wanted to say was regarding one question that was asked regarding number of articles that should be selected. I want us all to have it in mind that the more article you synthesize for your systematic review, the more robust your work is. Okay, so the more article you include, the more reliable your work can be. You know, that does not change the fact that you can use as little as you can find, but just know that the more, the better. Okay, that's one. Another one I wanted to add was to what when David was differentiating between scoping review and systematic reviews. I think he missed out something about scoping reviews not having critical appraisal. I think this is one major thing that differentiates scoping reviews from systematic review. You don't go through critical appraisal in scoping review. You just, once you are done gathering all as many as possible articles that you can get for your scoping review, you go straight to synthesis. Straight, you don't analyze them, you don't assess them. So that's one major difference between the two systematic review. And then systematic review is all about depth, while scoping review is about breadth. As it wants as much as it can get as you can get in scoping reviews. And while in systematic review, you just want something that has very high quality, that can be able to inform policies, that can be able to inform practice, and also inform future research. Okay, so this is that's it about what I wanted to say.
Thank you. David? David, the floor to you. Okay, David is not here. Julia?
Hi, everyone. Good day. I would like to say thank everyone for coming to the session. All the questions were very good. And we do encourage you to check our social media handles for Systematic Reviews Network, as well as the YouTube channel. We also would like to encourage you to look out for our upcoming events. And hopefully you'll join and be able to get a better appreciation for systematic reviews and meta-analysis, and be able to work with other persons who would like to learn more about systematic review. And hopefully we'll be able to see some persons in this room here do some publications. Thank you.
Thank you. Nafisa? Okay. If Nafisa
Thank
is not here, oh, Nafisa? All right. If Nafisa is not here, I would like to call this an end of today's session. Thank you very much for coming. We really do appreciate. On behalf of SRN, we sincerely do appreciate the active participation. See you soon. Bye.